Hi, friends, and welcome. Thank you for joining us on Navigating the Now. Here, two friends navigate life's challenges and complexities as Christian women, mothers, and wives. So come sit with us. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Welcome back, everyone. If you joined us last time, we talked about what the work-life balance looks like as full-time working young moms and how that is something we are navigating through every day. Today, we're going to talk more about the work side of life and the corporate world today, what that looks like for us. So, Christine, when you hear someone talking about the corporate world, what comes to mind? Is it usually used like negatively? Does it have a negative connotation behind it?
I think whether or not it's used negatively kind of depends on the context and who's asking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but generally, when I think of the corporate world, I think of like a white collar job, a typical 9 to 5, cubicle farm, rat race, you know, stuff like that. That's kind of what I think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where you're kind of like you're just a number. You're like easily replaceable. Like if you quit tomorrow, they'd have your replacement by next week, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I guess yeah, so that and like, it's just stereotypical, you grow up, you're expected to go to college, get a good job. And when people say good job, I feel like people usually mean something like the corporate world. Um, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because I think, the corporate world, they provide stability and as far as employment goes. Um,
Right.
they provide that financial stability. They in some ways provide purpose if you find the right kind of job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously it comes with a lot of drawbacks too. As we kind of discussed a little bit last time, it's not very conducive to family life.
Mm-hmm.
Climbing the ladder in the corporate world can be a challenge. I think, especially as young moms, with us trying to juggle everything that we juggle, it can be hard to really focus on one's career. And there's no shortage of, how do we help women get past these obstacles or whatever. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of challenges there, in the corporate world,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak.
Yeah. I think sometimes, like when I hear people talk about it, especially from people who don't necessarily work in the corporate world, whether that means they just work like within the home or they own their own business, like their own bosses. Like, I feel like a lot of those people tend to talk about it negatively. And like, I've definitely had some negative experiences, but overall, like you said, I think it depends on the job that you have and like finding the career and the job and the company that works and fits for you and what your interests are and what helps you be fulfilled. And so sometimes, like when I hear people talk about it in a negative way, I'm like, well, I like my job. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it has its pros and cons, but like I am fulfilled in my job. Like it does provide a steady income, but I've certainly had experiences where that hasn't been the case. Have you?
Um, honestly, it wasn't until I started working that I really heard or saw of anyone down talking a corporate job.
Mm-hmm.
Like I kind of said, the impression I always got was that was like the recipe or the path of success, right? Like you go to
Yeah.
college, you get good grades, you go to college, get good grades again, and you get a good job. And a good job meant something in the corporate world. The the things that or the kinds of people that I see that down talk corporate jobs are like the entrepreneur types or super independent people, I suppose, who value their freedom and the ability to do what they want with the time that they have over like stability and,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like you have to kind of play almost a social game when you're in the corporate world too. There's
Mm-hmm.
office politics. There's a game to it if you want to advance sometimes. You
Yeah.
you kind of get that vibe.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, you know, that like stigma of like getting to like a good job, like when people say that, I feel like they have there's different standards for what a good job looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Like just like you said, and like with entrepreneurs or, you know, small business owners, what have you, like their view of a good job is where they're the boss.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I have no desire to be the boss. That is
Yeah.
not something I want to do. At
Mm-hmm.
least not right now, you know. Um, so it just I think it's different for different people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of times that I've entertained the idea of, like, maybe one day I'll be on my own boss and start my own business, and I think that'd be awesome. Um, but yeah, I mean, it definitely there's like anything in life, there's trade-offs, and
Mm-hmm.
but I think the biggest attraction to, I guess, being an entrepreneur would be um the freedom to do whatever you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of out of curiosity, you said that you've heard other people kind of down talk the corporate world. We've mentioned entrepreneurs as one of them. Is there any other, I don't know, kinds of people that look down more or less or have something against the corporate world?
Um, I I think that you know, since we're talking about this in aspects of also being like working mothers, I do think some stay-at-home moms kind of I don't know if they look at it negatively or if it's just like a little bit like intimidating for lack of a better word coming
Mm,
from someone who has so much control over their own schedules and their own days. The thought of having some structure to it, like structure created by someone else, is a little bit of a
mm-hmm,
scary thought. And you know, like I mentioned before, being easily replaceable. But again, that goes back to just finding the right company and the right job because like at my job now, like I do feel valued. Like I do feel like I'm part of a team. And that's not to say, you know, if something was to happen and I was to leave, you know, they wouldn't like they would try to fill my position as quickly as possible
mm-hmm.
because they still have a goal, like they still have a job to do and that has to be done with whoever is there. And if there's not enough people, you know, they're going to hire someone else. They're going to find someone to replace my spot. But that
Right.
doesn't make me feel invaluable. Like I work for a company that has a goal in mind that's bigger than myself. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's almost more fulfilling to work in that aspect. It's probably, you could probably relate to that in terms of like the military. Like you're working, like you are serving and you're serving like the country, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also probably a fulfilling feeling to be part of something that's bigger than just yourself.
Yeah, being a part of a team, being united toward a common goal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, that's I do get a kick of that out of that. Um, and I guess for me, more the appeal is being able to use my brain uh
Yeah.
in a very analytical kind of way. Um, and I guess kind of speaking to the part where you're talking about you being easily replaceable. Um, absolutely we are, but I think there's a fun challenge in that almost, and like you got to make yourself valuable, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the business world is inherently competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like as an IT professional, I have to be constantly making sure I'm staying up to date with the current technologies. Make
Yeah.
sure I understand, this concept and that concept thoroughly. Become better at troubleshooting. And every industry has their thing, their thing that makes you valuable. It's
Mhm.
the skill set that you need to grow in order to keep your job or advance or whatever. Um, so I guess that competition is kind of fun for me. Like I kind of like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like even if you're in like just your regular workplace and there's like a new hire, like there's that sense of competition where it's like, oh, I can't let the new guy show me up. And
Right.
it
Yeah.
challenges you to continue and to grow yourself.
Hmm.
Um what is it like in your job? Is it like a rigid 9 to 5 job, or is it just, you get 40 hours a week in and finish your work, then it's all good. It's a little bit flexible.
Yeah. So I mean, I have to do 40 hours a week. But I have a lot of flexibility as to how I get that work done. And I have a great boss and a great, company that they're not hyper vigilant or anything like that or like micromanaging.
Mhm.
Um, so and on more than one occasion, I've had to take off in the middle of the day to go to a doctor's appointment or pick up the kids early, or the kids are sick and they have to stay home. So honestly, that's been great. That's been great for me, especially having young kids, to have that kind of flexibility.
Mhm.
And I think that's a function of, you know, the kind of boss I have, the kind of work that I do, and especially being post COVID, after
Yeah.
the world discovered that you can actually work from home and still get the job done.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I actually have a lot of flexibility in my job. But the
Mhm.
trade-off on that is sometimes on the weekends or like at, 1 o'clock in the morning, I'll have to work to do, software upgrades or something that you just can't do during business hours.
Mhm.
And I think you have some trade-offs like that too, right? Like you have to travel a lot for work.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like my job is really flexible because I have had jobs in the past where they haven't been at all. Like it's like like punch a time card when you get in and punch it out, like very, very rigid. But yeah, the job that I have now, they're really understanding that, life does happen, for things like doctor's appointments and like you said, having to pick up your kids early from daycare one day or something like that. Um, but yeah, like you said, it's also like a minimum 40 hours because that's just general. Like if you have health benefits, those are like the minimum required hours to work to get benefits, that sort of thing. But I do travel for work. And so some of that time, some days might be longer than others, some days might be shorter. But as long as the work gets done, at the end of the day, that's really the most important part. Um, But yeah, before COVID, like there was no such thing as working from home for my company. Like
Hmm.
there was just no such thing. You could, like we had the ability to, like we had a strong like VPN connection, all that stuff with we have laptops because we do travel for work. So we already have that set up. But pre-COVID, that was not a thing. Like we went to the office every day. And now it's really nice. It's like the one good thing to come out of COVID
Yeah.
is the realization that it is possible to work from home. Although you know, I'm I don't always feel as like efficient in my work if I work from home unless, you
Hmm.
have that like home office set up. Um, but they've also like even now they encourage us to get back into the office because there is that sense of camaraderie and that needed communication with your coworkers that you need
Hmm.
that needs to happen in person that you wouldn't otherwise get. Like, we have like Microsoft Teams where we can like instant message and call and stuff like that, but there's just something missing in that face to face. And so it has been really interesting to see how my company has handled it. They require us be in the office 3 days a week.
Hmm.
2 of the days have to be the same day of the week each week, and then the third day you can like pick. So there is some flexibility in that. But yeah, that is one good thing to come out of
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah, they're starting to well, at least the management needs to be in the office like 2 days a week now. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I wouldn't be surprised if pretty soon they start um if not requiring, heavily encouraging a lot of more people to come back to the office too. Because like you said, there's really nothing that can replace face-to-face communication. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's just you can't really replicate that over a Zoom meeting or
Right.
Teams or whatever. So,
Right.
but
So
yeah, I
I'm
mean,
curious, how much vacation time do you get a year at your job? Is it based on like years of experience?
yeah, yeah. So it's based off of how many years you have with the company. Right now, I think I get 2 weeks. I honestly don't remember how much
2 weeks
vacation
out of the
time.
whole year?
I don't remember exactly, and I feel awful that I don't remember.
That
Um,
can't be right. That's not very much.
yeah. Well, I mean, we also get these like floating holidays too. So
Okay.
yeah, it's weird. Like we have certain federal holidays off and some not. So we have like
Mm-hmm.
two floating holidays to take whatever holiday,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think I guess it would be enough for me because the rest of the time is already so flexible.
Mm-hmm.
um I usually won't have to like take a day off if I have a doctor's appointment, because he knows I'll just get the appointment knocked out in the morning and come back and work the rest of the day. Like that's usually
Yeah.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
um so I think like I'd be okay with the amount of vacation time I have.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, how about you?
Yeah. Well, I get 4 weeks a year, which
Mm-hmm.
sounds like a lot, but a couple years ago they combined, so they had like vacation time and holidays and then like separate from sick time.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came to the realization that people kept lying about being sick just to take their sick days. So they combined it all into just one like paid time off.
Okay.
So it's 4 weeks total, including, sick, vacation, holidays, all of that combined. And I think I have to have like 10 years of experience before that goes up at all. I think to like 5 weeks.
Okay.
Um, which I do think is enough time. I mean, if we don't use it all, some of it gets laid over to the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like you said, like if I have a doctor's appointment, like it's usually an hour or two and I can just make that time up at work later.
Right.
Um, but I do know, like I've been told, I haven't done the research myself, I probably should, that um America is like one of the worst countries for giving out like time off of work. Like I think other countries give like months.
I've heard things to that effect too. And I have mixed feelings about that, right? Because first
Yeah.
of all, well, on the one hand, while it'd be awesome to, I guess, have more time off to do whatever you want, um, like I said before, business is a competition.
Mhm.
And if you view business as a competition and not necessarily as like my life's purpose or something like that,
Mhm.
it logically it makes sense to want to be working as much as you possibly could.
Mhm.
You know, if you had to choose between a person A who said, I will be available, 100 days to do whatever you want for the company versus person B who said, I will be available 75 days to do whatever you want, and both were
Mhm.
charging the same price, you would go with person A, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and I don't think it's necessarily that companies, I don't think it's necessarily that companies hate people and don't care about your personal life.
Right.
or have anything personally against you. It's they're there to make money. And
Mm-hmm.
businesses that care about winning and driving out competition, that's that's just the game,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I don't and I really don't like how personally people take that. There's
Mm-hmm.
definitely value to drawing your own boundaries and making sure you don't burn yourself out, and making that clear to your employer, like, this is where I draw the line, this is where I need, these are my limits.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody should understand that businesses are in business to make money at the end of the day. That's it.
Right.
Um, and on that same note, you know, there, I'm sure we've talked about this a little bit before, but maternity leave,
Mm-hmm.
there's a huge push, I feel like, to have more maternity leave, paid maternity leave, more paid maternity leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I cringe every time I hear these arguments because, like, yes, as a new mom, you absolutely need time off to physically recover, to mentally recover, to
Mm-hmm.
emotionally recover and bond with your baby. Um, Absolutely, you need that. And do I think 6 weeks is enough time for that? Probably not.
Yeah.
But again, like, why should the company pay for you to be gone?
Mm-hmm.
You even said it earlier, you're replaceable, and people and your company will hire people to make sure that a job gets done. It's
Mm-hmm.
nothing personal, you
Yeah.
know. It's it's a business.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I heard that another, like, I think Canada has either 6 months or a year of maternity leave, and you get
What?
paid 50% that entire time.
Oh my goodness.
And like, that blows my mind from a financial standpoint, because somebody's paying
Yeah.
that,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
It seems to be like such a controversial topic. And like, I think that you and I do have like a different mindset than the majority about it because I don't know, like 6 weeks is like that's the federal level, like required, like through FMLA that you can take off without having to worry about something like losing your job. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that it's going to be 6 weeks of full pay,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I was able to take 12 weeks. I had the option to take 12 weeks, and I a portion of that was paid 100% because I had to use my own vacation time. A portion of that just had a percentage paid, but I'm pretty sure at least half of those 12 weeks were 100% unpaid.
Mm-hmm.
Or they were like partially paid through the FMLA, however it is. And it changes, like that varies from company to company, like
Yeah.
they kind of have to um, decide that for themselves and what they're able to do. But after after having a baby, like yes, you have to have some time to recover from childbirth
Yeah.
and then like staying up all hours of the night with a newborn. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is 100% a full-time job
Oh
when
yeah.
you're in it. And you do need time to recover. But like you said, I don't know, like we can't expect to stay home with a baby and get paid from a company that we're not currently making money for.
Right. Like,
Like I'm
that's not
not
your.
yeah, I'm if I'm not home like if I'm at home and I'm not working at my job, I'm not producing any sort of income or competition for my company. So like why should they be paying me? You can't expect to pay someone who isn't like providing a service, like they're not
Right.
bringing in income. And so, if you were to pay them, someone else within that business would be having to bring in more money or extra money to pay someone who isn't. And so it's a fine balance. Like you do have to like that has to go into your thinking when you do start planning to have a family, are the financial burdens that could potentially come from that. And that includes, not having part or all of your income for a few weeks. And
Mm-hmm.
I do think like just from a logical standpoint, we can't, or like, I don't expect to get a full paycheck if I'm not at a company working, making that company money.
Right. And I mean, if a company wants to pay you, absolutely, they should feel free to, but
Yeah, yeah,
nobody should be saying you have to. That just
right,
doesn't make any sense to me. And again, it is nothing personal. It's not that the company hates you or isn't
right,
excited and happy for you to be growing your family. It doesn't make sense.
right, right. And I've even heard, some people try to advocate for having paternity leave for the
Hmm.
fathers. And um, my husband was able to stay home for 2 weeks after our son was born, which was really great. And I do remember, like, I still remember it as clear as day. Like, I had a ton of anxiety at the thought of him going back to work and me watching this baby by myself at home and just being like, what do I do if I need help and no one's here? Like,
Yeah.
I just started taking care of this baby 2 weeks ago. Like, we just met. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And
Yeah.
so I have heard, other countries saying like paternity leave, and I get the appeal of that. And I do kind of wish that that was an option for dads, even like we were saying for maternity leave. Like, even if it wasn't paid, like I think it should still, I would like the option of having them stay home a little longer, but whether that's paid or not, that's like a whole nother thing. But was
Yeah.
Shane able to stay home with you guys?
No, not really.
Mm,
I think it's more so a function of him just the type of work that he does, he wanted to get back into it. But
yeah.
he also has a very flexible job. So if there was ever a day where he
Mm,
needed to be home
yeah.
with me, he could do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of think that I would agree that fathers should get some sort of time off, whether
Mm-hmm.
or not it's paid. I don't know. I think it probably should be similar to maternity leave, but I think the consideration should be this person did not give birth, so they're not physically trying to recover from anything, but
Mm-hmm.
they are also trying to bond with their child, and they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to be there to support the mother who it definitely is going to need help, especially if she's not around her family or friends or anything.
Yeah.
um you
They're
know
basically the primary caregivers for the mother. So the
right,
mother can be the primary caregiver to the baby.
exactly, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So there is a level of support that is needed there.
Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, and I think this is what everybody is trying to say, is we're all human beings, mothers and fathers. We're employees, but we're mothers and fathers, and we're going through
Mm-hmm.
a life-changing event. And time, you a company ought to consider that. I
Mm-hmm.
think the argument is just how much should someone be compensated for while they're doing it, you know.
Right.
So
Yeah. Well, clearly there are pros and cons to working in the corporate world. And some of those challenges we've experienced, but we also probably have a lot yet to come across. But for those tuning in, hopefully we haven't scared you out of the thought of working outside of the home if that's something you've never done before. But for those of you that have, we'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the working world. But until then, we'll see you next time as we navigate the now.
thank you for listening to today's episode. If you would like to share your thoughts, please visit our website at www.navigatingthenow.show. Until then, we'll see you next time.